Welcome to this special edition of the Pod Well Travelled. We're going to focus on cruising. I'm Stephen Scourfield, the travel editor of Seven West Media in Australia, and I'm with Michael Ferrante, who is Australia and New Zealand's Cruise Writer of the Year.
Thank you. Great to be back on the pod.
Let's look at the whole global cruising scene. I've been travel editor of Australia's biggest audience company for 21 years, and I didn't see cruising coming back after the pandemic in the way it has. I thought small ship would start, then it would gradually come back, but everything's just come back in one go, hasn't it, Michael?
It's been a massive comeback, and quick, as you say. And really, when you look at how ships, particularly here in Western Australia, but Australia in general, how ships were shunned during the pandemic, probably more so than places like the US and even Europe, who's kick-started their cruise industry a lot earlier than we did. And we've sort of followed on from that pretty strongly. And now we're looking at 30 million passengers worldwide, which is exceeding what it was pre-pandemic. It's pretty amazing.
It was. I mean, I remember looking at one of the cruise tracking websites at one stage, and there was this huge raft up in Manila Bay. I mean, there were just all the big ships, you name them, and they were there. And now, not only are they sailing, but a lot of new ships sailing as well, and even more new ships coming through, aren't there?
There's a lot of new ships coming online, over the next 5 years through to 2028. Clear memberships alone, they're looking at 44, I think it is, and $62 billion worth since 2019, and that just gives you some idea of the level of capacity coming through the system, and that's really driven by demand. I mean, these companies are big, successful companies. They wouldn't be investing billions and billions of dollars if the demand for cruising wasn't there.
That's right. Now, you've just been cruising in Norway. I've just cruised Norway, Iceland. For me, it was a 900 and something person ship. And I think that size has been very, very successful in the comeback. Tell us about your Norwegian coastal time.
Yes, I cruised with Hurtigruten, who really were the pioneers of expedition cruising. In fact, it's their 130th year this year. And I was on the MS Trollfjord, which is a 500 capacity ship. So quite an intimate experience, from what I've experienced before, and really a nice size for that type of cruise. It was kind of a hybrid type cruise, part expedition, part sort of coastal scenic cruising. So I managed to get both aspects of cruising. It was lovely, actually, and we started off in Svalbard, which is deep in the Arctic Circle, up near the North Pole, fairly close to it anyway, and then we made our way down south to the Norwegian coast, and it was all the way down to Bergen.
It's such a great history, that trip, isn't it? Their connection to those communities, as a company which also delivers supplies, is just it's such an authentic
it is, and
feel to it,
and they still do those things that they originally did when they first started the shipping, which was transporting passengers on like a public transport system. It's not so much of that anymore, but still with regards to fresh supplies and mail and things like that. Those ships, the Hurtigruten ships, are still doing that up and down that coast.
It's interesting that we're getting back to that, that this is what the expedition ships are trying to create, is these authentic moments which, as you say, is part of the history of that group. I was with Viking. They've got a very good itinerary from the Norwegian coast across to the Faroe Islands and then on to Iceland, and you sort of come in around the northern coast of Iceland, finish in Reykjavik. Super itinerary, a real sense of journey, I suppose. You've got a beginning and a middle and an end, which suits a writer, of course. It's a classic story form.
Absolutely.
But having spent some time in the fjords, as you did, in Norway, it's really nice then just to set off across the ocean to the Faroes, and then set off again from there across to across to Iceland, so a sense of expedition and obviously following the Viking wake. This was the northern route that the Vikings were. So once again, this sort of authentic feeling where you've got more story to what you're doing. Globally, the Mediterranean cruising has been very, very busy this year too. So we've just talked about that Northern Europe, but then in the Med and those sort of classic cruises have been very busy this year.
Oh, huge. And, anecdotally, we're hearing it's difficult to get cabins in, places like the Mediterranean, Eastern and Western, Adriatic cruises, around Italy and Greece, Turkey, all over Europe, really, the Baltics and through Northern Europe as well. The demand is there, and it, again, goes back to, the reason cruise lines are investing so much money into, the onboard experience, but also their excursion programs. So immersing passengers into the destinations they're going to and learning more about them, having those off-board experiences like, visiting farms and undertaking cooking classes, learning the local culture, the cuisine, of course. All those types of immersive travel experiences now can be undertaken on a cruise.
Yeah. Look, I see, several, but I can think straight off my head 3 kind of trends. One is, as you say, a huge amount of work on making better connections with communities. So I'm cautious with the word sustainable, but it's overused in many ways. But, trying to have long-term relationships with farms and with so on. So I think there's a lot of work there. I think I see a lot of work in the design of ships, trying to create a bit more space in ships, not just with fewer passengers, but with more public spaces and more nooks and crannies. Certainly with dining areas, there's more space in that. And then, of course, I see the work that's going on in relation to fuel and managing the ships themselves. And I must say, just Australia has a very strong cruising fraternity and a lot of focus on inbound to bring people in from Europe, from the US, who have been missing cruising for the last few years, of course, and a lot of ships coming to Australia. So it's looking like a real hub for 2024. Speaking more generally, watching cruise companies got their 2026 itineraries coming out. You were talking about demand and finding cabins, and really, I think you should certainly be planning for 25, and you'll be finding what you want probably in 2024, but 2025 is probably the focus, in 2026.
Yeah, and these cruises are selling out.
Yeah,
way in advance.
It's so. Yeah, I mean, if there's one lesson...
in terms of finding yourself the right cabin as well, but also booking that far out can actually get you the best deals as well.
Yeah.
So we're looking at further out and also last minute, but it takes a bit more to book a last minute cruise, especially a big one. So booking ahead, it makes sense.
Yeah. So you need the right ship, the right itinerary and the right cabin. Yes. So you need all of those things sorted out, and to get that choice you need to be thinking ahead. Otherwise, any one of those 3 factors could be in question. Well, as you see, it's a really animated, busy time in the cruising industry. It's come back faster than we ever thought, and it's come back right across the board, from expedition and small ship, medium ship, right up to those mega ships. In the second part of our cruising special, Michael will be talking to 2 insiders who will tell us not only about what's going to happen in the Australasian region, sailing out of Australia mainly and in New Zealand, but also will peel back the layers and give us more insight into how expedition cruises are planned, how they get the itinerary together, and how that feeds into local communities.